Good evening, and welcome to Couch Conversations with the Doctors, where health is wealth. So glad to be sitting here with you. I want you to tune in, chime in. Remember to share with all your friends and families, and tell them that it's what time? It's Couch Conversations with the Doctors. We're going to go around our table as we always do and do our introductions to each and every person who comes in here. Oh, I see we have a new representative, Danny Davis, that's here with us. That's my coworker, Lavelle Brown. Hey, Sally Bell. Say
Yeah,
hey
how
to
you
everybody.
doing? I'm the Danny
We're
Davis
loving
remix.
the Danny Davis remix. All
This is
right,
the
I am
remix.
loving it. I am loving it. We're going to start with my coworker, our very own Dr. Douglas Graham. Dr. Graham, can you introduce yourself to everyone that's here?
Thank you, Nikki. I'm a retired physician. I worked in the western suburbs for about 30 years. For 2 years, I joined the congressman in his office. And I'm going to tell you, it's a real honor and a pleasure to be here. I'm going to try and answer your questions if I can.
Just to add, the congressman's right here.
Fantastic,
He will be joining shortly.
great. Fantastic. To the man who says that I threaten him to be here every Monday, but he is always here. That's our very own Dr. James Miller. I guess he pays very good attention. Go right ahead, Dr. Miller.
Okay. I'm stepping away. Hey, listen.
All right.
Greet Danny Davis stepping away. The real Danny Davis is now approaching.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. My name is Dr. James Miller, and I'm a physician. I'm an internist who's retired from clinical practice, still trying to heal the community. Glad to participate in this Monday evening couch conversation. Hopefully, we can get some information that will be helpful to making you healthier and wealthier.
Fantastic. To the gentleman who has the art of the stars, that's our very own Joseph Harrington, who is sitting in front of one of his very beautiful portraits. Joe?
Thank you, Nikki. Joe Harrington. I retired in 2017 as the regional health officer for Cook County for the state health department, where I was also an administrative law judge. I'm very active civically. I'm on the board of Cook County Health, and I just finished a meeting with a board that I'm on, Community Health, the largest free clinic in the nation.
Fantastic. To the man who really wants to be the Iron Chef guru, he's our weight loss doc. That's our very own Dr. Tony Hampton.
Always happy to be with you guys. Definitely trying to help as many people as possible lose that weight, reverse their diabetes, improve their blood pressure, and or get off blood pressure medicine. So very happy about that. And I really have found it an honor every night I'm here to share a healing message with you guys. So looking forward to it.
And to his competition, the man who is the chef extraordinaire, the barbecue king, and that daddy of all those daughters, our very own Dr. T. Thomas.
Yeah, Nikki, listen, that's my brother. I support him. And, I learned a lot from this panel. It's a tremendous amount of talent here and the amount of caring that happens for the community. We just want to make sure that the community is as healthy as they can be and making good decisions on behalf of their own health and the health of their families.
Outstanding. Our Dr. Maya Green is running a little behind, and our Dr. Terry Mason should be signing in with us shortly. And I spoke him into existence. Dr. Mason, please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Dr. Terry Mason, and I'm always glad and honored to be on this show with my esteemed colleagues and our congressman. And I'm hopeful that we'll be able to give you some words that answer some of your questions and inspire you to live a better life.
Outstanding. And we want to thank our host, Dr. Tony Hampton, as always, with our very special guest, who's our guest on every Monday night. And that's our very own representative of the 7th Congressional District that makes health is wealth so possible for all, our very own Congressman Danny K. Davis. Congressman Davis?
Well, there are a lot of things going on in our country and in our world. And of course, people in the 7th District are actively engaged and involved in all of those. As a matter of fact, we had a tremendous rally on yesterday in the Ukrainian village community with the governor, the mayor, 3 members of Congress, the National Polish Alliance, the National Ukrainian Alliance, and Friends of Ukraine. All of us are waiting with bated breath to see if we can avert another war. And the thing about war now, given the COVID, the pandemic, war on top of that will be seriously disastrous. And it's amazing because I've been on Zoom conversations where people were asking the question, why were we concerned about Ukraine? As if they believe that we can survive if Ukraine does not. And it just kind of blows your mind that there are people who can't seem to make the connection. But so be it. I've been delightfully thrilled. I went to an event Saturday night, and there were about 700 or 800 people there in recovery. That is, people who drink too much. Alcoholic Anonymous was well represented. People who use too many mind-altering drugs, and so the drug anonymous people were there. And of course, the people doing reentry, because many of the individuals, about 70+% of the individuals who end up being incarcerated are people who have these other problems. And of course, the other problem is mental health issues. And so if you could take away the drug dependency, the alcohol dependency, and the mental health, you could seriously reduce mass incarceration. We would seriously reduce mass incarceration. The governor is going to be here tomorrow as a witness as we talk about what the Recovery Act and the Rescue Act has meant to states all over the country, and state of Illinois is one of those. And so I look forward to the recapitulation. This will be a very busy week for us. Every meeting that I'm scheduled to attend, I've got 2 others at the same time. And that's because we've been away from here for 2 weeks. And every committee that you can imagine has scheduled something. So people will be running from one committee to another committee, one meeting. We have 2 health events this week that I'm scheduled to attend. One of them I probably won't be there much because it's at the same time that we have the oversight of government reform, where we'll be looking at recovery. But all of these things are important and they all relate. So we thank all of you for sharing your expertise, your interest, and we can move right into it. Go right ahead. We're ready.
So I was muted. I'm so sorry. Thank you so much. Want to say hey to Lorenzo Burton that's here with us. She says hello everyone. To Linda Johnson who's here. She says hello everyone. To Sherry Johnson who's here. She says good evening. Nellie, Miss Nellie is here and she says good evening everyone. Tia is here and she says hello from Chester, Illinois. To Hannah who is here. She says oh nice. Lorenzo Burton wants to know, can anxiety cause a heart attack? I think we're going to have to come back to that and maybe answer that for him a little later. To Ronetta Bowman, who is here, and she's actually doing a call out, telling some other people to be here, like Marcy and Purpose Love and Monique Crawford. She's telling them all to tune on in and come be here with us. And to Virginia Knight, she says, afternoon, everyone, glad to see you back. And she has a bunch of smiley faces there with her. So I want to say hey to her for stopping in and being here with us. We're going to go right to our questions as we do on Monday night. So our first question of the evening says, what is the makeup of this new variant, BA2, and should we be concerned? Don't all of you jump at that question at one time. So Doug, you're speaking, but you're muted.
Come on. That might work. So I'll take a swing at this. This is like a first cousin of the Omicron. It's very, very similar. One thing that we know that's different is, while Omicron was much more spreadable than the Delta, this variant is more spreadable than the original Omicron. We don't really have enough data yet to talk about whether it's going to make you sicker or not. But if it spreads faster, that means it's going to reach more people who haven't been either exposed or vaccinated. So we might anticipate that we may have another wave of COVID in our future for those who are unvaccinated and unboosted.
Yep. And Dr. Doug, I just want to add something to that. I think the other thing that people should realize is that just like the Delta and just like Alpha and Beta, the people that are most vulnerable are the people that are not vaccinated. And so, while we don't have a lot of information about the BA2, but we do know that people that are most vulnerable are people who are not vaccinated.
Yeah, I'd like to add something as well. I think it's important as we continue to see hospitalizations go down, deaths going down, that COVID is not going anywhere. I think some people are thinking with the numbers going down, COVID is behind us. COVID is not behind us. What they're talking about is going from a pandemic to an endemic. That's what the flu is. It's seasonal. We have flu every year, and people die from the flu every year. So people still need to be cautious. And based upon what Dr. Doug was saying, we also need to be prepared to go back to the mitigations that are being canceled now. People don't have to wear masks in certain places. We're going to be able to move a little bit freer, but that doesn't mean this will always be the case. And so I think that people should take this with a grain of salt. Things are going to be better moving forward, but we may also have to go back to some dark days depending upon what happens.
All right, Tony, you're nodding as if there's something you want to add.
No, just I think this. I completely agree with Joe, because the number of deaths that we were having from flu every year and pneumonia every year are just kind of hitting numbers, and those numbers are really high. I mean, so we are going to transition to where that becomes the norm for COVID, where hopefully the numbers will be far less than what they are. But the things that I've enjoyed over the last couple of years was not really getting sick, because we've been due diligent about being safe. And I'll be honest, I don't want to get a cold, nor do I want to get anything else. So I think a lot of the things that we've learned over the last couple of years, not to be extreme about it, but we should take those lessons learned And I still, go to the office and I'm a little tidier around my desk. I wipe it up, or, I wipe it. I'm always thinking about how can I make sure I don't come home and give my family things that they shouldn't have. So I think that we're transitioning, but we want to transition in a logical, smart way. And hopefully we'll be fortunate that these variants won't cause harm, because the reality is we're going to keep mutating and keep having variants. But if we have, and the good news is that most mutations don't lead to harm, because it's a very complex process to get to the point where you harm humans. So if you think about the millions of mutations that must be occurring as we speak, and to only have a few mutations we have to worry about, that really puts the odds in our favor. So I anticipate things will continue to get better, but I just caution everybody to just, just continue some of those same behaviors as we kind of get eased into this second phase.
I'd also say that I'd also just add quickly to a point that Tony made, is that the mutations are normal. That mutations are normal, not just for this coronavirus, but all viruses. The viruses want to live. And as soon as they find something that keeps them from doing that, from thriving, then they will change what they need to change in order to survive. So this is not, I just want people to understand that this is not something abnormal, something unusual. This is quite normal. And this is one of the things that viruses just do, which is why the message you heard from my colleagues about still being vigilant are important.
Yeah. One last thing. I took a quick look at the CDC's website, and according to the CDC estimates, that flu has resulted in 9 million to 41 million illnesses, 140,000 to 710 hospitalizations, and 12,000 to 52,000 deaths annually between 2010 and 2020.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. That's a mouthful. So, well, Tamika, hey, Uncle Terry, that's from
Hey,
Tamika.
Tamika.
She is here. She is here. And she's doing her call out as well, letting everybody know that we're here. So she wants Deborah and Rosetta and Tasha and April and a few other people to come on in and join us. So make sure that everyone joins. And Gail, you better get on here before you miss it. And then she texted after that she missed it. So Gail, we do not want you to miss. Uncle Terry is on and he is here. Our next question says, what's your thoughts on the new no mask mandate list? And can each of you share your opinion?
Yeah, I'll start off there. That it's not no mask. It's saying that masks are not mandatory. It's not saying that you should not wear a mask. It's saying that it is not mandatory that you wear a mask. And so we have to use our best judgment in terms of how we carry ourselves and what mitigation we use in under all of the circumstances. Again, depending on where you are going, depending on who you're going to be around, what is the setting, I think that you should be wise and be careful because, again, we do know that as Dr. Doug said, that this mutant is contagious. We just don't know whether or not the effect is going to be going to make people as sick or not. I mean, and we don't know what is going to come. We feel that at some point in time, the virus will be there. It will cause infection and may not kill as many people. But again, be careful. And I'm going to be wearing my mask when I'm in settings that are around a significant number of people that I don't know who they are and who they come in contact with.
Doug, your thoughts?
Unmute. I've been thinking about this question, and from my perspective, it's hard to give, I think, a general answer, because in the earliest part of my training, I took care of immunocompromised cancer patients night and day for a long time. So I'm used to putting on a mask. It's almost like a reflex for me. Now, I don't like wearing it. I mean, people can't hear you. It's a little uncomfortable. It gets a little stuffy. But I also echo what Dr. Miller says, as I think everyone has to use their best judgment. If you've got underlying medical conditions, or you're on treatment and you are things that affect your immune system, I would continue to wear the mask because this isn't over yet. And the other, I think, sets of circumstances have to do with what are your access to a physician? What is their access to treatments? And so if you have easy access to the physician and easy access to the treatment, that might help you wage where you get worded up. But if you don't have access and don't have treatments, then you might want to be extra careful. So that's how I'm thinking about this.
Okay, Dr. Mason.
I agree with my colleagues. I think that it's important, I think what people are missing is what was said earlier, is that the mandatory part of it has been removed, but it doesn't say don't wear a mask anymore. It just says it's not required based on the information from the departments of public health that say that we're at a point where we feel safer without mandating the mask, but we still would recommend that people wear them, particularly when they're in crowds and other settings where there are likely to be people still that are harboring this virus.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not an all clear. It's just a revision of moving from it being required and you had to maybe face some penalty because you didn't wear it in certain circumstances to where we're not doing that anymore, but it's still recommended. And I, like my colleagues, will still, particularly going out in the public and in spaces where I don't know people or in gatherings, I will still wear my mask. I do not plan on not wearing the mask when I'm out in gatherings, period.
All right, Joe Harrington.
Yeah, I think there are conditions under which it's important to wear a mask, and that's what people are actually saying.
Yeah.
That you have to make a judgment, when is the time to wear a mask and when is the time not to wear a mask. What we're seeing, and again, on a population level, things are safer. For the population in general and a majority of people, things are safer. But there's still some people that are at risk. And those people that are at risk, particularly those people that are at high risk, they have to consider their options. Now, if they choose not to wear a mask, they're putting themselves in jeopardy and possibly people that they love, because again, if they contract COVID, they're likely to give it to people that they love unknowingly. But the risk is still there. The risk has not gone away. It's just a lower risk, and it's acceptable for people not to wear masks. But there's certain conditions that people should really seriously consider whether or not they're safe when they're out. I joked earlier that you don't see anybody that's participating in this program tonight wearing a mask, but we're all in the house or someplace where it's safe. So that's going to be how I roll. When I know it's safe, I won't wear a mask. When I feel unsafe, I'll put on a mask. And I think that's what people should think about, and that's how people should make those decisions.
All right, Dr. Hampton.
Yeah, I think everything I teach in my practice is about individualizing your decision. So when I think about the person that's sitting next to me, which is my father-in-law, right? He is not, my age. He's got me by at least 20 plus years. And, I'm wearing my scrubs because I'm around, people who are sick at clinic often. And what I found is that I just don't want to bring that home to him. Don't want to bring it home to my wife. And if my kids were home, I wouldn't want to bring it home to them. So in my profession, there's more exposure. So I think you have to look at your profession. You got, think about what do you do for a living? If you think about it, are you going to see different rules of engagement in a clinic, in a nursing home, in a prison? You're probably going to see different rules. In other words, they're going to take a little longer to lax their rules. So don't be surprised if you end up at a clinic and it doesn't seem like nothing's changed. So I think you, again, use common sense while protecting your body, while trying to be the healthiest person you can be. You wear a mask if you are in settings where there are more people than you're comfortable with. And I think if you take that kind of approach, you'll be okay. And it's a psychological situation. So some of us will take longer to take the mask off because we've been traumatized by this event. And because of the trauma, it's going to be hard for us to take that mask off. And that's okay. I prefer you overprotect than underprotect. So I'm okay with that. I'll probably be in that group too. It's going to take a minute before I'm just comfortable walking around, like everything's normal. But I will be doing a lot of outdoor activities. And when I do those activities in an uncrowded environment, I'll probably be mask free for sure.
All right. Dr. Pete Thomas, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with all of my colleagues. And just, again, as a primary care doc, I see people with chronic medical problems, and I will just continue to encourage them to double down on getting the diabetes controlled, getting the high blood pressure controlled, getting those screenings done, eating better, exercising, all of the things that we know helps to keep people safe and to preserve our immune system. And so I think we lost some ground, and we don't really know just how much, but my anecdotal experience just by watching patients come back into the health center, people's numbers aren't looking so good. Okay. I'm talking about blood pressure, diabetes, everything. Nothing looks good. Okay. And so part of it is, people have just been so overwhelmed by the COVID pandemic that maybe they sort of dropped their guards a little bit on the stuff that can kill you also. Yeah, we know we lost 1 million plus lives with COVID, but we're losing far more with those chronic medical conditions. Dr. Terry's brought that up several times. 800,000+ people we lose from cardiovascular disease. So we got to go back to the old stuff. We got to get back into what are those numbers looking like? That systolic and diastolic blood pressure, that is still damaging endothelial tissue in our blood vessels. And so we got to get back down to that kind of stuff. And yes, wear your mask.
All right.
Nikki,
They're asking for the congressman's opinion on, does he think we should take these masks off?
Let me tell you, I sit in my office alone sometimes with mine on. I sit in my car driving along with mine on. I'm one of these individuals who believe that an ounce of prevention is worth much more than a pound of cure. And, I was on a panel yesterday with a group of Indian physicians, and one of the questions that they asked, it was their national forum, was how can we reduce the cost of healthcare?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think that education could seriously reduce the cost of healthcare. And ever since I've been involved with health in any way, shape, form, or fashion, one of the issues that gets raised in terms of healthcare organization, healthcare protection. Just imagine if we were all doing what we could to protect our own status. You talk about reducing the cost. It would go way down, way down, way down. I mean, I know people who are in environments where they talk health all the time, but they're not doing the health protection. one of the philosophers said that an ideology is not sufficient. We must be involved in the practice. And so teaching, but not learning, knowing and not doing, it's kind of like an oxymoron.
Mm.
And I think a lot of people in health settings have heard me talk about what drove me to actually stop smoking. I went to visit my father many years ago. He smoked all the while we were growing up, Camel cigarettes. So I was smoking. And one night I didn't have any cigarettes. I said, Daddy, give me one of your cigarettes. And he looked at it, he said, cigarettes? I said, yeah, cigarettes, the Camel cigarettes you always. He said, oh, I don't have no cigarettes. I said, yeah, but you smoked all the time. He said, that was when I didn't know no better. He said, I think a person would be a fool to know something is not good for them and they keep doing this. And I said, I'm going to stop smoking. And I did. That was about 40 years ago.
All right, let's look at some of these questions. We have a number of people chiming in here on the side, and people are saying great things. However, Shelly Bailey says, hello. Any tips on hypothyroidism? I also suffer from Graves' eyes disease. Why do they only search for high and low levels? My complaint is always the cold night sweat and the decrease in heart rate.
Mm-hmm.
I'll start with a couple.
And as soon as you start, you got to let Dr. Miller in on this one because he was shaking his head like.
I know, that's right. Just real. I'm looking at like one thing, high and low levels. Your body is always trying to stay in a state of balance. So too much thyroid is bad. Not enough is bad. And I think of the thyroid as one of the main thermostats of the body. So if it's too high, you overheat, you may be sweaty, you may have diarrhea, you may have, just increased heart rate, anxiety. And the opposite is true. You can get constipated if it's too low, and you can have dry skin. And maybe you're sluggish. Instead of being anxious, you're slow. So when I talk to patients, I'm always focused on their diet. That's how I roll. It's all about diet, and there are certain foods that are better. I think eating whole foods, real food, anti-inflammatory foods, that's the starting point. When you eat things like salmon with omega-3s, you do really well with that. You drink a lot of water, eat a lot of leafy green vegetables and things like that. And when it comes to supplements, I tell people ashwagandha is important. I think most of us know iodine is important. In fact, in countries that are poor, where they don't, put the iodine in the salt, they tend to have thyroid problems because the thyroid, you need iodine to make thyroid, interesting enough. So you got to have that. And so be careful, because a lot of times as we're trying to improve our diet, for example, I'm a big pink Himalayan salt person, but is it iodine? Does it have iodine in it? Do I have to supplement with some seaweed or something? So be careful. I made this mistake with my kids in that we were trying to be perfect parents, and we had our bottled water. Guess what? The bottled water didn't have fluoride in it. And there's issues with fluoride, but guess what? That led to some problems for the kids with cavities. So I think the key is to become educated, and so I'll just wrap it up with that.
Yeah. The thyroid, for me as a clinician, was one of those diseases that I always enjoyed managing. Not that I want people to have it, but it is a disease that can, because the thyroid itself is as Dr. Hampton pointed out, is a regulatory organ that produces hormone that affects so much of our bodies in terms of how it behaves. And the symptoms, of hyper and hypothyroid tend to be the opposite of each other. And and the other factor is you can easily slip from hypo to hyper and vice versa, depending on whether or not you've been diagnosed, whether or not you are eating or not eating the right things, or taking medication that contains some things that either block or stimulate the thyroid gland. So I think that it's important to it's the fun part of it was that it's a disease that you can treat, and you can make people better and feel better and get rid of some of the things that they don't want to have. And this, for instance, people who are hypothyroid will tend to gain weight because the metabolism is slowed. And when you correct that problem, they begin to see the desired effect, which is a reduction in their weight, reduction in the constipation, feeling with more energy, and those kinds of things. So but it's important to know what your levels are. I mean, when you say why they check the level, because if you don't know, and it's and if you've been diagnosed to be hypothyroid, and maybe something has happened in terms of food and that interferes with the medication that you take, and now you've gone from one extreme to the other one, and you won't understand, why am I suddenly feeling just the opposite of what I used to feel. So it is one of those diseases that you do have to monitor it, and you do have to be careful in terms of making certain that your levels are in the range, in the desired range.
Okay.
Dr. Miller, I would just add to what you just said, because it's really important, and what Dr. Hampton said, and that is, we as good we are, God we're not. So we don't cure very many things.
Yeah.
We control a lot of things, but we don't really cure them. And that's not a knock against this. It's just a reality.
Yeah.
And we need, and it's important that, and that's why we always talk about, it's important for you to have a primary care doctor that you see, who is able to track you over time, not once every 5 years, but somebody you see with some regularity, who is going to do the appropriate battery of tests to determine whether or not something is going on. And then we've got to realize that doctors don't really cure much in the way of disease. We control it. We may help you control it. We help you control your blood pressure. We help you control different things that you have, but we rarely cure anything. Cure is up to you. Cure is you're being compliant with what needs to happen, and then giving your body the nutrients it needs to help you help yourself. And so that's why, and then I'm I'm always on my food soapbox, is that most of the diseases that we have that lead to the comorbidities that we've been talking about, like diabetes and hypertension and all those things, these are all diseases that are many times related to what we eat and what we drink. And so we need to make certain that as we're getting our medication, we also need to be getting some education about what we need to be eating to help us avoid the complications of these particular problems. And if your physician that you see doesn't know, then you need to find, you need to ask him or her to refer you to someone who does, who can help you manage that with more natural things, particularly around food, because there may be some things like you got high blood pressure, and way in the world you should be walking around eating pumpkin seeds, salted pumpkin seeds in a little box, or pretzels with all the salt on it, or just certain things that you may think that taste good and are great for you, but are actually doing you significant harm.
Absolutely.
Is there omega-3 in salmon croquettes?
I don't think so. By the time you cook it, it's gone.
Well, so Congressman, I mean, there's omega-3 in the salmon, but it's how you prepare it. There are ways, that you can, limit the therapeutic benefit of having salmon. So if you're frying it and putting in all the batter and the salt, then you're taking away from the nutritional value of the salmon. But it's still salmon, though.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's
you know,
salmon, but I wasn't safe the other day when I went to this breakfast that Reverend Hunter had. And I called back and say, could you ask the lady who cooked those if she could prepare me about a dozen? So maybe I'll cancel that.
You know, Congressman, you can pick up some walnuts. Walnuts have omega-3s in them. So if you like walnuts, you could eat those. You know, I know they don't taste nearly as good as a salmon croquette.
yeah,
not nearly give you that satisfaction.
I think the congressman wants the salmon croquette. And, you know,
no, I understand. But I had to give him an alternative.
A side thing.
Yeah, but he can make believe a salmon croquette.
Well, all I know is
They taste good.
I went back for second.
Let me just add real quick. I talk to patients about I'm a low carb guy, so I don't like cornmeal because a tablespoon of cornmeal is equivalent to half a tablespoon of sugar. So I don't want to use cornmeal on my salmon croquettes. However, if you fry your salmon, you have your onions and your egg, and you're not frying them too hard, and you're not overdoing it, and maybe you use a different oil, like a avocado or coconut oil, which that can handle the high temperatures. That would be a way to mitigate that, like Brother Pete was saying. If you think about what you're trying to do, the omega-3 is in there. You just don't want to drown it. When I've been to people's homes making salmon croquettes, and you might as well say they were frying chicken. It was like just covered in seed oils and the seed oils. Again, there's a difference between coconut and avocado oil and seed oil. Seed oil is taking a seed and turn it into a oil, which means it has to be highly processed, which means it's inflammatory. So now you're adding an inflammatory oil to something that's supposed to be anti-inflammatory, which is salmon. And then if you add the cornmeal, you're actually adding something else that's inflammatory. So the goal is to understand what's a processed food. Well, cornmeal is a processed food. So what's a processed food? Seed oil is a processed food. So once you start to tease that out, you can definitely allow our distinguished congressman to have his croquettes and still enjoy that, because you can. And I would have salmon. I grew up with rice, right? So I would shift it to maybe cauliflower rice and season that really well. Now you got, you're kind of working it out. I've mitigated the things that I used to do, and I've changed based on my life experience, which have taught me I need to do something different so I can have a healthy heart.
Well, I saw some coconut oil at my house, and my wife has been using it. She said she didn't buy it, so I must have brought it there. I don't know how, but I know I've seen it. She said she didn't bring it, so I must have brought it there.
Yeah.
But those salmon croquette with the coconut oil ain't gonna taste good.
Don't mess with my theory now, brother.
It's like sitting down and saying, I'm gonna get me some ice cream, man. I mean, you gotta realize this is just an indulgence.
It's like ice cream without the milk, right?
That's right. But you will, to your point, you will adapt. Today at clinic, somebody gave our lovely Dr. Hope a gift of Krispy Kreme. She was doing her whole low carb things. I shouldn't say this publicly, but she shared it instead of eating it. And I'll be honest, a couple of people who had started a New Year's journey only since January attempted to consume it. And they couldn't do it because it was just too sweet, because they had made a shift in how they eat. So you'd be surprised. And my wife would send me to Krispy Kreme when it was just this addiction. But then once you get that out your mouth, you'll be okay. But yeah, so it is a transition. And it is a different taste. Coconut oil tastes different. So you do have to do some adjustments, So
look at it like cigarettes.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry.
You
Joe.
learned a lesson about cigarettes.
Well, that's why I tried to give you. That's why I tried to give you another alternative if you want to get your omega-3 6s and 9s. You know, but there are nice places to get them. You know, nuts are one, and almonds. I mean, walnuts are another good place. And also, you know, if you look at the not YouTube, but the TED Talk that is done looking at Alzheimer's disease, you can look at the role that omega-3 6s and 9 play in Alzheimer's disease, and it's a great TED Talk by a man whose dad had Alzheimer's, and talked about how that whole thing happened. So Neil Barnard, who is the president of the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine, but the TED Talk is by Neil Barnard, and he's talking about his dad, and you know, and he starts talking about the grease can that used to be on the stove where you poured, when you fried the bacon and you poured the grease in the can. I mean, it's realistic. I mean, very real in terms of where, and I grew up that way. We had one of them cans on the stove.
My family did too.
And you fried eggs with them, that grease, and with all that bacon grease, and did a lot of stuff, but we didn't know what we were doing to ourselves. So if you get a minute, watch that TED Talk with Neil Barnard. It's a TED Talk, and he's talking about Alzheimer's, and he's talking about his father who died from Alzheimer's.
Oh, wow. You know, Virginia Knight wants everyone to know that she's going to wear her mask regardless. So she's not taking her mask off. And Virginia, I join you. I will have mine on just as well. There's no cold, no pneumonia numbers. There's a lot of stuff in the air, so I'm going to have that mask on too. Gail Galloway is here, and she's saying it will not open. I don't know what it is that won't open, but I hope it opens for you. Shauna Smith is here, and she says hello from the Jacksons. Tanika is also doing that call out. Again, she is wonderful. Shauna Smith has a question. She says, Shauna Smith Jackson has a question. She says, what is a high HDL?
So cholesterol has lots of different shapes and sizes, or plasma fats have lots of different shapes and sizes, and they're broken down into 3 different ones: high, low, and very low. And the HDL is thought to be protective. So when it's high, it's supposed to be a good thing, but then that also may depend on what the other ones are too. I think, you know, Tony, could you take it from there?
Yeah, I'll do what Dr. Maya does, and I always share the story about tuck pointing your house. So the LDL, the lousy, should be low LDL cholesterol is what tuck points your house. So in other words, cholesterol is not a bad thing. It's actually used to protect your arteries and to help heal you. However, if you have an inflammatory diet, that's the standard American diet, you will not tuck point your brick house, you will stucco it. And now you have, and that's the equivalent of clogging up your arteries. The HDL, which is you want it to be high and is considered healthy, that is to remove the extra mortar. So as you tuck point, you remove the extra mortar away from your arteries and moves it away. So that's the visual I give patients. And from my experience, the 2 things that really help that, in my experience, has been when you reduce the starch and sugar, your HDL will go up. Also will reduce your triglycerides, which are the fats that are floating around. You want them to just be floating around. And then when you exercise, you can increase your HDL. So those are 2 proven. There's no really good medicine to improve your HDL. And in my opinion, the triglycerides and HDL are the most important things that you will measure based on the studies in terms of what's the best correlate to whether you're going to have a heart attack. Well, if you have a low HDL and a high triglyceride, your risk for a heart attack is very high compared to a person who doesn't have that. And so it's a very good predictor. So when you're talking to your doctor about that lab, make sure they don't just focus on the cholesterol and the LDL. They should focus on the triglycerides and the HDL. That's going to give a much more predictive value.
All right. So Harriet Scott is here, and she says hello to Dr. Hampton. Sheila Mackey is here, and Sheila just wants you guys to know that's called cooking grease. that can that was on the stove. That's called the cooking grease. She also wants the I love it, Sheila, though I love it. She also wants the congressman to know that sardines are a good form of omega-3. So she wants the congressman to stock up on him some sardines. That's what she wants him to have.
And collagen, Nikki. I want to throw in collagen because you're eating the whole fish. Like if you do like I do, I just eat the whole thing. So when you eat those little crazy things that you're supposed to throw away, you get collagen. And so that's actually just something to keep in mind too.
Okay, Liza Johnson is here. She was laughing at the congressman talking about wearing that mask, saying, "Oh Lord." But I think Linda is going to have her mask on just as well with the rest of us, in her car and in her office just as well. Marsha Cooper is here with us. Dorothy is here. Dorothy Flowers and Patricia Harmon. And I'm going to grab you guys' questions in just one moment. We want to run back to a question that we had that one of our viewers has adamantly kind of been asking us, and I don't want us to run out of time without actually sharing their question. And their question says, what foods can we eat to replace? What food can we eat to replace potassium when we are taking blood pressure and or water pill medications? So they're asking what foods can they take to replace the potassium without having to add a potassium tablet?
That's fair. I do tell patients about cream of tartar. That's not a food, but just a FYI, cream of tartar that we make our lemon meringue pies with, that has a ton of potassium. I'm a low carb guy, so I'm not a big banana fan because it's got 28 carbs divided by 4 is 8 teaspoons of sugar. My preference would be things like or should I say 7 teaspoons of sugar. My preference would be like avocados. Avocado is probably my number one source of potassium for patients. Lima beans, Swiss chard. When I was a vegetarian, I ate a ton of Swiss chard. I ate a ton of spinach, which has potassium in it as well. So those are the things that kind of come to mind. And we did talk about salmon earlier. Salmon's on the list as well. And, pomegranate's on the list. Those are the things that kind of come to mind from my nutrition training.
Okay. Okay. Go ahead, Doug. Go right ahead.
I was just going to add a couple other things because I like them. Sweet potatoes are also good, and dried fruit's also good too. Dried apricots and dried raisins. So, a little snack you can carry with you, that might help you too.
A lot of your fruits are good. A lot of the fruits have, natural fruits have potassium. So that's another source of potassium too.
All right. So they gave some great ideas about how you could replace that potassium in your system. Do you have any recommendations for a counselor I could speak with about my anxiety? That was our next question.
I think that's going to be, you start with your health system and your insurance because first of all, it's very difficult to find behavioral health professionals because a lot of people need that right now. So you start with your health system to see if your health system can provide somebody, because most of these clinicians are actually working virtually these days. So you kind of start with that. Some people who have the resources end up getting a life coach. And although that's not a professional, sometimes you just need somebody to talk to. Truth be told, I have a leadership coach, and having somebody to talk to is very important to help you manage your stressors. I mentioned, ashwagandha earlier as a potential supplement option. It's definitely good for stress. So I would encourage people to consider that as well. But I think at the end of the day, you have to be practical. If you have a person that you talk to, it can add up. So you want to make sure it's something that's under your insurance so that you can get adequate coverage. So that's kind of where I would start.
All right. fantastic. We are on target. That is simply fantastic. You know, the next person says, I have been feeling overwhelmed lately, and it is beginning, I think they meant to say beginning, to affect my well-being. How can I proceed with coping? And I think that question kind of leads back to something Dr. Hampton just said about checking with your health system and your primary care physician. We always talk about making sure that you have a primary care physician. So I think if we said that, that would really be answering that question. But Dr. Mason, are we missing anything to
I would
this
just,
viewer?
I would just ask people not to begin to self-medicate. And we can self-medicate with things that we can buy over the counter with in bottles and cans. And we can get ourselves in a lot more trouble. So alcohol is one of those things that people self-medicate with. And I'm sure my internal medicine colleagues can expound more about that. But we need to be careful that we don't get caught in trying to self-medicate just to deal with the pain by using alcohol and or other drugs, both those that you can inhale as well as the ones that you can drink.
Yeah. I think I'll just add one other thing. I think the first thing that this individual seemed to be doing, at least talking about it to other people, that I have a problem. And one of the big issues that I always, saw in patients is that people, when they deal with things that affect them as stress or mental health conditions, people seem to have this fear of being judged in a way that is derogatory, and therefore they tend to try to hold it in and not put themselves in a position of being judged. However, when you're sick, there is no worry about being judged, because you need to have something to take care of the problem so that you can do better. And if you hold it in, it will eventually explode and cause more problem. So being able to talk and as we've always talked about, having a primary care physician, I think that's the first place you start talking. And that person will probably, if it's something more than what they are able to should be doing, will get you referred to a specialist that can help you in dealing with the issues. And because what ultimately has to happen is that the issues that are causing you to feel stressed and how you're doing it, how you're living, and those kinds of things are really the things that need to be taken care of. And so it's somebody coaching you, whether it's somebody helping you and understanding what it is that you're going through. Because I think that when most people are under stress or in a situation where things are just getting them down, they feel that there is nobody else that understands that except them, and that the world is sort of caving in on them. And so it's important not to feel that I can reach outside and I can get help. And you have to be able to speak about it in order for that to come and to come into play.
Oh, outstanding. Patricia Heyman says, on my parental side of my family, all have diabetes: father, aunts, uncles, and grandfather. I am extremely worried about developing it. I work out regularly, but what are additional ways to prevent this disease?
Man, that's I have good news for you. Your genes do not imprison you to a life of diabetes. I have great news for you. Ironically, type 1 diabetes is the one that's not as inherited as type 2. Oh, is it really inherited? It's mostly a dietary disease. So what you've inherited is the dietary patterns of our previous generations. And some of that was, just how it, culture developed over time. So my answer to your question is you can't out-exercise a bad diet. So do I want you to exercise 100%? It does if you build up muscle, it gives your glucose a place to go to. So you do want to have a little muscle and you want to exercise. It'll help you burn some of the sugar you consume, but you'll never out-exercise a bad diet. So your goal should be to do what's logical. If I have a problem breaking down carbohydrates and sugar in my body, then maybe I should just reduce some of those things in my diet. So start to think about I even have I'll share a handout of, eat this, not that, a basic approach, because so once you start to understand it's a dietary problem, it'll take away all the fear, all the things that may have impacted your family, kidney problems, visual problems, circulation problems. All those things will not be your destiny, because you'll learn that that is very preventable. So I would reduce the carbs in your diet as a, kind of a starting point. And then you can kind of, see how your body reacts to that. I would ask your doctor to get an insulin level, because if you don't have diabetes right now, if you get a fasting insulin level, it'll predict diabetes 5 to 10 years in advance. So you'll get a heads up if your pancreas is overworking right now. But I'll definitely share that resource in the comments. I understand your fear, but you have nothing to fear. So let's make sure you take advantage of those resources, okay?
Outstanding. And I know you guys are going to hate to hear me say this, but we have reached that time. So I want to let Miss Dorothy Keller Flowers know that we see your question. We'll definitely grab that, and maybe we can look at that on next Monday night. I just want you to know that, and to everyone else who has left their questions, like Marsha Cooper and some of the others who have left your questions, we'll grab those on next Monday. We have not forgotten about you. It's just that our time is here. Linda Johnson wants Dr. Mason to know that what you have said in our couch conversations has really helped her out a lot. And Linda Johnson is laughing because apparently she was somewhere near the congressman and she had Simon croquettes this weekend just as well, but she will not be cooking them anymore in that oil that she's been using. As Miss Sheila said, the cooking grease that you keep in the can on the stove. We're going to go around the table as we always do. We're going to ask everybody your until next Monday. What would you like to leave everybody with until next Monday? We're going to start off with my coworker, Dr. Douglas Graham. Dr. Graham?
So I know that this situation about masks is becoming confusion, whether to wear it or not. And I'm thinking for myself, I'm always going to carry a mask because I don't always know what situation I'm going to find myself in. And I don't want to be in that situation where I should have had a mask but didn't and then got sick. So they're small, they're light, easy to carry. So for next week, I'll be carrying a mask.
All right. Carry that mask. I keep one on demand in my pocket. Keep that mask with you. Dr. James Miller, you're until next Monday. You're muted. You're muted, Dr. Miller. Dr. Miller, you're muted. You're muted. Unmute yourself.
Okay, so my until next Monday is be careful. As we begin to go forward, with the changes and the new recommendation, I know it's almost whenever we seem to be able to not stop doing something that we didn't like doing in the first place, we sort of feel a freedom or that we've been released from something, and that's a good thing. However, it's like you being on the sidewalk and you want to, and something happened and you decide to dash across the street without looking both ways, and you run and you're free, but you get hit by a car. So be careful. That's my word.
All right, be careful. Wear your mask. Keep it with you. Dr. Terry Mason, you're until next Monday.
Just remember that you are the best asset you have. Not what you own, not what you buy, none of that. Your body is the best asset you have. So make sure you give it the right fuel. Make sure that you move it, and make sure that you feed it a balanced diet in the 3 dimensions, both mental, physical, and spiritual, for the best possible health and life you can have.
All right, Bishop. That's Bishop Dr. Terry Mason. He keeps us on target around here. All right, Bishop. He'll heal you and take you to church all in one segment. I love it. Joseph Harrington, you're until next Monday.
Well, I was thinking about a condition that I suffer from, and probably a number of people that are part of this program do. I have to wear glasses or contact lenses. I'm myopic. It's a condition, but it's manageable and it's treated. I remember the first time I got glasses, and I was in 4th grade. and actually some people came to school, and I realized then that there was a reason I couldn't see the blackboard from the back of the room. It changed my life. So I think there's small things that can make a big difference in your life. Don't go around in a fuzzy world. You know, if you need to wear a mask, wear a mask. You know, whatever you can do to protect yourself, to be healthy, do it.
All right. Dr. Tony Hampton, you're until next Monday.
Well, first of all, I want to, thank you, Nikki, Congressman. Just every time we do this, it blesses me. I enjoy talking to my colleagues, hearing from my colleagues, and just learning. So thank you for that. I want to do a shout out to all the people who have commented. I see you. And if some of those questions, I'll probably chime in a little bit later for the ones that I think I can answer. But I do want to just leave you guys with a very simple message. And it kind of speaks to what Joseph just said. Sometimes you got to do some, not research, but me-search. You have to figure out what is it that I need to figure out about my journey that's going to help me along my way. There's not too many people I can think of that's going to love you more than yourself, right? So I need you to listen to your body. You're going to hear us give it recommendations. And what you do is you apply those recommendations almost like an experiment. And you try something and see if it works for you. If it doesn't work, good news, you can try something else. I've actually had patients who I'm trying to do a low carb diet, for example, and one patient eats oatmeal, doesn't bother them at all. The next patient, it raises their sugar. So would it make sense for the patient who raises their sugar to continue to eat that? So what I ask people, listen to your body will answer most of your questions. So do some research, and I guarantee you, if you do that, you're going to find the answers you're looking for.
All right. Fantastic. Do the me search. I love it, love it, love it. Congressman Bernita Baldwin wants you to know that what a great educational platform. Thank you. And she's looking forward to tuning in next week. And Marjette Leek, Sister Leek, is saying, this is a wonderful conversation with doctors. Thank you for sharing your expertise. Very helpful. Well, just want to remind you guys to join us here, same bat time, same bat station on next Monday. Remember to mask up if you are in question and think you need to mask up. Most of all, remember to wash those hands. Do not forget to wash your hands. You never know what you're touching, so wash those hands. And don't forget, if Dr. Maya was here, to get in here. And no one has said nothing about social distancing, so make sure that you keep an eye on that just as well. And to the man who always teaches us all that health is true wealth. If you really want to be healthy, if you really want to be wealthy, it's all about really being healthy. And that's our very own Congressman of the Illinois 7th Congressional District, Congressman Danny K. Davis.
Well, let me just thank all of our panelists, all of our participants. And I would appreciate it very much if between now and next week, I guess I'm fortunate that there are still some people who like to take photographs with me. I don't know exactly why, but they seemingly always want you to take your mask off. I mean, some of the, some photographers go berserk. And I sometimes make the mistake of telling them that I'm trying to observe public health protocols and not photography protocols. And I also would jokingly say, well, I don't think I'm going to look any better if I take the mask off. I don't know if you could improve the way I look. Anyway, and I'm trying to figure out how to just, most of the time I give in, but I don't always feel good about giving in. I'm saying, if I want to keep my mask on, why can't I just keep it on? and some just get upset. So if you could help me next week by telling me how to do that without sounding offensive to the individuals and without maybe embarrassing them or making them angry or thinking that I'm being highfalutin. You know, I mean, and especially if there are 5 or 6 people in the group and I'm trying to, you know, just say, okay, snap, and be gone. So if you could help me with that next week, I would appreciate it.
Oh,
And we are getting more into mental health. We've actually got 2 or 3 mental health hearings on tomorrow in 2 or 3 different committees. So mental health is you know, getting more attention because people are expressing their recognition of anxiety and uncertainty. So thank you for bringing all of this to the forefront and help me with that question.
well, Congressman, we have about 36 text messages right now that's helping you with the question since you've asked it. And it's going to keep going, so I know by next week we'll have an answer. But I've got to read you one answer that a doctor actually texted in. He said, please don't say my name on the air, but tell the congressman to cough right when they ask him to take the message. And they will tell you that's okay.
That's all right.
Bye, everybody.
Good night. Sounds like a good answer. All right. Thank you so much. Bye-bye. Yeah. That'll do.